Chapter 14, Mind Over Matter. He could drive well when he kept the speed reasonable, I had to admit. Like so many things, it seemed to be effortless for him. He had turned his radio to an oldies station and he sang along with a song I'd never heard. You like 50s music? I asked. Music in the 50s was good. Much better than the 60s or the 70s. Ugh. He shuddered.
Take that back. Yeah, like 20s through 80s, peak music. He's including Queen in his poo-poo. Incorrect.
Are you ever going to tell me how old you are? Does it matter much? His smile, to my relief, remained unclouded. No, but I still wonder. He sighed and then looked into my eyes. Whatever he saw there must have encouraged him. I was born in Chicago in 1901. Carlisle found me in a hospital in the summer of 1918. I was 17 and dying of coronavirus. He was dying of Spanish influenza, not the coronavirus.
Lame.
He heard my intake of breath, though it was barely audible to my own ears. I don't remember it well. It was a very long time ago, and human memories fade. I do remember how it felt when Carlisle saved me. It's not an easy thing, not something you could forget. How did he save you? A few seconds passed before he answered. He seemed to choose his words carefully. It was difficult. For me, it was merely very, very painful. I could tell from the set of his lips he would say no more on this subject. I suppressed my curiosity, though it was far from idle. His soft voice interrupted my thoughts. I was the first in Carlisle's family, though he found Esme soon after. She fell from a cliff.
What a bummer.
She fell from a cliff. They brought her straight to the hospital morgue, though. Somehow, her heart was still beating. So you must be dying, then, to become. We never said the word, and I couldn't frame it now. No, that's just Carlisle. He would never do that to someone who had another choice. He looked at the now dark road, and I could feel the subject closing again. And Emmett and Rosalie? Carlisle brought Rosalie to our family next. I didn't realize till much later that he was hoping she would be to me what Esme was to him. But she was never more than a sister. It was only 2 years later that she found Emmett. She was hunting. We were in Appalachia at the time, and found a bear to finish him off. They did not find a bear to finish him off. They found a bear about to finish him off. I'm struggling here. Not as much as last week, but like a little. She carried him back to Carlisle, more than 100 miles, afraid she wouldn't be able to do it herself. I'm only beginning to guess how difficult that journey was for her. But she made it, I encouraged. Yes, he murmured, and they've been together ever since. Sometimes they live separately from us, as a married couple, but the younger we pretend to be, the longer we can stay in any given place. Forks seemed perfect, so we all enrolled in high school. I suppose we'll have to go to their wedding in a few years, again. Alice and Jasper? Alice and Jasper are two very rare creatures. They both developed a conscience, as we refer to it, with no outside guidance. Jasper belonged to another family, a very different kind of family. He became depressed, and he wandered on his own. Alice found him. Like me, she has certain gifts, above and beyond the norm of our kind. But you said you were the only one who could hear people's thoughts.
Yes, Belle, there's more than one superpower. Sit down.
That's true. She knows other things. She sees things. Things that might happen, things that are coming. But it's very subjective. The future isn't set in stone. Things change. What kinds of things does she see? She saw Jasper and knew he was looking for her before he knew it himself. Saw Carlisle and our family, and they came together to find us. She's the most sensitive to non-humans. She always sees, for example, when another group of our kind is coming near. Are there a lot of your kind? I was surprised. How many of them could walk among us undetected? No, not many, but most won't settle in any one place. Only those like us who've given up hunting you people can live together with humans for any length of time. We've only found one other family like ours, in a small village in Alaska, because most of us prefer the north. Why is that? We were parked in front of my house now, and he turned off the truck. The porch light was off, so I knew my father wasn't home yet. There's a reason why we chose the Olympic Peninsula, one of the most sunless places in the world. It's nice to be able to go outside in the day. You wouldn't believe how tired you can get of the nighttime in 80-odd years. So that's where the legends came from? Probably. And Alice came from another family, like Jasper? No, and that is a mystery. Alice doesn't remember her human life at all, and she doesn't know who created her. She awoke alone. Whoever made her walked away, and none of us understand why or how he could. There was so much to think through, so much I still wanted to ask, but to my great embarrassment, my stomach growled. I'm sorry, I'm keeping you from dinner. I've never spent much time around anyone who eats food. I forget. I want to stay with you. It was easier to say in the darkness, knowing as I spoke how my voice would betray me, my hopeless addiction to him.
Oh my gosh.
Can't I come in? He asked. Would you like to? I couldn't picture it. This godlike creature sitting in my father's shabby kitchen chair. Yeah, if it's all right. He walked beside me in the night, so quietly I had to peek at him constantly to be sure he was still there. In the darkness, he looked much more normal. He reached the door ahead of me and opened it for me. I paused halfway through the frame. The door was unlocked? No, I used the key from under the eave. I stepped inside, flicked on the porch light, and turned to look at him with my eyebrows raised. I was sure I'd never used that key in front of him. I was curious about you. You spied on me? But somehow I couldn't infuse my voice with the proper outrage.
That's not flattering.
Not cool, man.
I let it go for the moment and went down the hall to the kitchen. He was there before me, needing no guide. That should worry you, Bella. He sat in the very chair I'd tried to picture him in. His beauty lit up the kitchen. How often? I asked casually. How often did you come here? I come here almost every night. I whirled, stunned. Why? You're interesting when you sleep. He spoke matter-of-factly. I knew I talked in my sleep, of course. My mother teased me about it. I hadn't thought it was something I had needed to worry about here, though.
This is such a massive red flag on top of all the other ones.
Can't see for all the red flags. His expression shifted instantly to chagrin. Are you very angry with me?
Yes.
That depends. I felt and sounded like I'd had the breath knocked out of me. On? He urged. What you heard, I wailed. Instantly, silently, he was at my side, taking my hands carefully in his. Don't be upset, he pleaded. He dropped his face to the level of my eyes, holding my gaze. You miss your mother, he whispered. You worry about her. And when it rains, the sound makes you restless. You used to talk about home a lot, but it's less often now. Once you said, it's too green. Anything else? I demanded. He knew what I was getting at. You did say my name, he admitted. I sighed in defeat. A lot? How much do you mean by a lot, exactly? Oh no, I hung my head. He pulled me against his chest. Don't be self-conscious, he whispered in my ear. If I could dream at all, it would be about you.
How is she turning this into something that he's not okay with when she should be the one that's not okay with it? It's like, oh no, I'm so sorry you had to listen to me talk in my sleep.
Then we both heard the sound of tires on the brick driveway, saw the headlights flash through the front windows. Should your father know I'm here? He asked. I'm not sure. Another time then. And I was alone. Edward, I hissed. I heard a ghostly chuckle, then nothing else.
No.
Bella, he called. In here. I hoped he couldn't hear the hysterical edge to my voice. I grabbed my dinner from the microwave and sat at the table as he walked in. Can you get me some of that? I'm bushed. He'd stepped off the heels of his boots to take them off, holding the back of Edward's chair for support. Suddenly it's Edward's chair.
Yeah, come on, it's Charlie's chair.
I took my food with me, scarfing it down as I got his dinner. It burned my tongue. I fill 2 glasses with milk. Who has milk with lasagna? It sounds like a rich dairy disaster.
Plus, you might get a little musical in the night. It's a lot of dairy.
Bella, what are you doing? You now know this guy watches you in your
Carrying
sleep.
an orchestra for his listening pleasure.
Charlie sat in the chair, and the contrast between him and its former occupant was comical.
Then leave Charlie alone.
He is a perfectly wonderful man, and that is his chair. How was your day? I asked. The words were rushed. I was dying to escape to my room. Good. The fish were biting. How about you? Did you get everything you wanted to get done? Not really. It was too nice out to stay indoors. I took another big bite. Charlie surprised me by being observant. You look kinda keyed up, he noted. Do I? Was all I could manage in response. It's Saturday, he mused. I didn't respond. No plans tonight? He asked suddenly. No, Dad, I just want to get some sleep. None of the boys in town your type, eh? He was suspicious, but trying to play it cool. I thought maybe that Mike Newton, you said he was friendly. He's just a friend, Dad. Well, you're too good for them all anyway. Wait till you get to college to start looking. Sounds like a good idea to me, I agreed as I headed up the stairs. No doubt he would be listening carefully all evening, waiting for me to try to sneak out. See you in the morning, Dad. See you creeping into my room tonight at midnight to check on me. Anyway, I worked to make my tread sound slow and tired as I walked up the stairs to my room. I shut the door loud enough for him to hear and then sprinted on my tiptoes to the window. Sprinted on my tiptoes. I threw it open and leaned out into the night. Edward? I whispered. The quiet laughing response came from behind me. Yes?
This is why you turn on your room light.
I whirled, one hand flying to my throat in surprise. He lay, smiling hugely, across my bed, his hands behind his head. Oh, I breathed. sinking unsteadily to the floor.
All the way down to the floor. Woo!
I'm sorry, he pressed his lips together, trying to hide his amusement. Why don't you sit with me? He suggested, putting a cold hand on mine. Can I have a minute to be human? I asked. Certainly, he gestured with one hand. Stay, I said, trying to look severe. Yes, ma'am. And he made a show of becoming a statue on the edge of my bed. I banged the bathroom door loudly so Charlie wouldn't come up to bother me. I meant to hurry. I brushed my teeth fiercely, trying to be thorough and speedy, but the hot water of the shower couldn't be rushed. It unknotted the muscles in my back, calmed my pulse. Finally, I couldn't delay anymore. Toweling hastily, rushing again, I pulled on my holey t-shirt and gray sweatpants. I rubbed the towel through my hair again and then yanked the brush through it quickly. Then I dashed down the stairs so Charlie could see that I was in my pajamas with wet hair. Night, Dad. Night, Bella. He did look startled by my appearance. Maybe that would keep him from checking on me tonight. Edward hadn't moved a fraction of an inch. A carving of Adonis. I went back to his side, sitting cross-legged beside him. What was that all for? Charlie thinks I'm sneaking out. Oh, why? Apparently, I look a little overexcited. He lifted my chin, examining my face. You look very warm, actually. He bent his face slowly to mine, laying his cool cheek against my skin. I held perfectly still. He breathed. It took me a minute of scattered concentration to begin. It seems to be much easier for you now. Be close to me. Does it seem that way to you? He murmured. Much, much easier, I said, trying to exhale. I felt the tremor of his breath on my neck as he laughed. Mind over matter? I pulled back as I moved. He froze, and I could no longer hear the sound of his breathing. We stared cautiously at each other for a moment. Did I do something wrong? No, the opposite. You're driving me crazy, I explained. He considered that briefly, and when he spoke, he sounded pleased. Really? A triumphant smile slowly lit his face. Would you like a round of applause? I asked sarcastically. I'm just pleasantly surprised, he clarified. In the last 100 years or so, I never imagined anything like this. I didn't believe I would ever find someone I wanted to be with. And then to find, even though it's all new to me, that I'm good at it, at being with you.
Bro, that's such a lie. This boy is so cocky.
You're good at everything, I pointed out. He shrugged, allowing that, and we both laughed in whispers. It's not easy, he sighed, but this afternoon, I was still undecided. I'm sorry about that. It was unforgivable for me to behave so. Not unforgivable, I disagreed. Thank you, he smiled. You see, I wasn't sure if I was strong enough. He picked up one of my hands and pressed it lightly to his face. And while there was still that possibility that I might be overcome, he breathed in the scent at my wrist. I was susceptible until I made up my mind that I was strong enough. And there was no possibility at all that I ever could. I'd never seen him struggle so hard for words. It was so human. So there's no possibility now? Mind over matter, he repeated, the chapter title. Wow, that was easy, I said. Easy for you, he amended, touching my nose with his... He booped her! Easy for you, boop. And then his face was abruptly serious. If I'm away from you for any length of time, I'll have to start over. Not quite from scratch, though, I think. Don't go away then, I responded. Bring on the shackles. I'm your prisoner. But his long hands formed manacles around my wrists as he spoke. He laughed his quiet, musical laugh. I haven't seen you like this before. Isn't it supposed to be like this? He smiled. The glory of first love and all that. Do you remember that day that Mike asked you to the dance? The day you started talking to me again. I was surprised by the flare of resentment, almost fury, that I felt. That was the first night I came here. I wrestled all night, watching you sleep, with the chasm between what I knew was right, moral, ethical, and what I wanted. I knew that if I continued to ignore you as I should, that someday you would say yes to Mike, or someone like him. It made me angry. And then, he whispered, you said my name. You spoke so clearly. At first I thought you'd woken, but you rolled over restlessly and mumbled my name once more, and sighed. The feeling that coursed through me then was unnerving, staggering, and I knew I couldn't ignore you any longer. For almost 90 years I've walked among my kind and yours, all the time thinking I was complete in myself, not realizing what I was seeking, and not finding anything because you weren't alive yet. Then Edward's cool arm was around me under the covers.
Making moves, Edward.
I know! Like, this man would not hold her hand 12 hours ago. He hummed a melody I didn't recognize. It sounded like a lullaby. Should I sing you to sleep? Right, I laughed. Like I could sleep with you here. You do it all the time, he reminded me. But I didn't know you were here, I replied icily. So if you don't want to sleep, what do you want to do then? I couldn't answer at first. I'm not sure, I finally said. Tell me when you decide. I could feel his cool breath on my neck, feel his nose sliding along my jaw, inhaling. I've decided what I want to do. I want to hear more about you. Ask me anything. Why can you read minds? Why only you? And Alice seeing the future. Why does that happen? We don't really know. Carlyle has a theory. He believes that we all bring something of our strongest human traits with us into the next life. He thinks that I must have already been very sensitive to the thoughts of those around me, and that Alice had some precognition, wherever she was. Are you ready to sleep? He asked, interrupting the short silence. Or do you have any more questions? Only a million or two. We have tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Are you sure you won't vanish in the morning? You are mythical after all. I won't leave you. His voice had a seal of promise in it. One more then, tonight, and I blushed. The darkness was no help. What is it? No, forget it. I changed my mind. Bella, you can ask me anything. I didn't answer, and he groaned. Please? His voice was so persuasive, so impossible to resist. I shook my head. Please? Again, that pleading voice. Well, I began, glad that he couldn't see my face.
This is what she asks him. I just looked ahead.
I'm just gonna jump right into it. You said that Rosalie and Emmett will get married soon. Is that marriage the same as it is for humans? He laughed in earnest now, understanding. Is that what we're getting at? I fidgeted, unable to answer. Yes, I suppose it is much the same, he said. I told you, most of those human desires are there, just hidden behind more powerful desires. Oh, was all I could say. Was there a purpose behind your curiosity? Well, I did wonder about you and me. He was instantly serious. I could tell by the sudden stillness of his body. I don't think that would be possible for us. Because it would be too hard for you if I were that close. That's certainly a problem, but that's not what I was thinking of. It's just that you're so soft, so fragile. I could kill you quite easily, Bella, simply by accident. He moved his icy palm to rest it against my cheek. If I was too hasty, if for 1 second I wasn't paying enough attention, I could reach out, meaning to touch your face and crush your skull by mistake. I can never afford to lose any kind of control when I'm with you. He waited for me to respond, growing anxious when I didn't. Are you scared? He asked. No, I'm fine. He seemed to deliberate for a moment. I'm curious now, though, he said, his voice light again. Have you ever... He trailed off suggestively. Of course not. I flushed. I told you I've never felt like this about anyone before. I know. It's just that I know other people's thoughts. I know love and lust don't always keep the same company. They do for me. Now, anyway, that they exist for me at all. That's nice. We have that one thing in common, at least. Your human instincts, I began. He waited. Well, do you find me attractive in that way?
I'm so glad you're reading this, Jenna.
I know. I was like, oh.
He laughed and lightly rumpled my nearly dry hair. I'd be so offended if, I'm having this talk with somebody and they're like, "Oh, you." I may not be a human, but I am a man, he assured me. I yawned involuntarily, which is exactly the kind of response you want from your partner when you tell them that you find them attractive. That's great. I'm gonna go to bed now.
Oh, whatever.
I've answered your questions. Now you should sleep, he insisted. I'm not sure if I can. Do you want me to leave? No, I said too loudly. He laughed and then began to hum that same unfamiliar lullaby, the voice of an archangel, soft in my ear. More tired than I realized, I drifted to sleep in his cold arms.
It's just so cringe, somehow, the way it's written and the fact that they only just held hand, or it goes so fast and then it just comes across so cringe. It's just
And all the middle schoolers reading this.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this bad. It doesn't.